Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! The moments ticked by slowly as Robert waited restlessly in Sarah's cozy apartment. His gaze constantly drifted towards his wrist, the ticking seconds offering little solace. His impatience grew as his girlfriend's brief absence stretched on, leaving him stranded amidst indecision. Feeling antsy, he meandered through the rooms he knew so well, each corner holding a memory. His curiosity piqued when he stumbled into the bedroom, where a glimpse of pink among the mundane pile of laundry caught his attention. With a delicate touch, he reached for the hidden treasure, revealing a set of silky pajamas, their fabric radiating a soft glow. He ran his fingers over the smooth surface, marveling at the intricate lace trim adorning the cuffs and collar. Without thinking, he held the top up to his chest, surprised to find it seemed close to his size. Heart racing, Robert glanced toward the closed bedroom door. Sarah wouldn't be back for at least another 20 minutes. Before he could talk himself out of it, he quickly shed his jeans and button-down shirt. With trembling hands, he slipped the silk pajama top over his head. The cool fabric settled against his skin, sending a shiver down his spine. He pulled on the matching bottoms, adjusting the drawstring waist. Robert turned to face the full-length mirror on Sarah's closet door. His breath caught in his throat. The pink silk draped elegantly over his lean frame, accentuating curves he'd never noticed before. The soft color brought a warmth to his complexion, making his blonde hair appear to glow. For the first time in his life, Robert felt pretty. He ran his hands down his sides, marveling at how the silk flowed beneath his fingers. A small smile tugged at his lips as he struck a hesitant pose, one hip cocked to the side. The sound of a key in the lock shattered the moment. Panic gripped Robert as he frantically tried to remove the pajamas. In his haste, he became tangled in the delicate fabric. The bedroom door swung open as Sarah called out, "Babe, where are you?" Robert froze, arms awkwardly trapped above his head in the half-removed top. Sarah appeared in the doorway, a grocery bag dangling from one hand. Her eyes widened as she took in the scene before her.
I can explain,"
Robert stammered, face burning with shame. To his surprise, Sarah's expression softened. She set down the bag and crossed the room, gently helping him free himself from the twisted silk. "Oh, honey," she said softly, smoothing the pajama top back into place. "You don't need to explain anything." Robert blinked, confused by her calm reaction. "You're not angry?" Sarah shook her head, a small smile playing at her lips. "Of course not. I'm just surprised. But if this is something you want to explore, I'm here for you." Relief washed over Robert, followed quickly by a wave of emotion he couldn't quite name. Tears pricked at the corners of his eyes as Sarah pulled him into a warm embrace. "You look beautiful," she whispered, running her fingers through his blonde hair. Robert buried his face in her shoulder, overwhelmed by her acceptance and support. When he finally pulled back, Sarah was looking at him with a thoughtful expression. "You know," she said, tucking a strand of hair behind his ear, "if you'd like, we could make this a regular thing, maybe on weekends?" Robert's heart skipped a beat. "Really?" Sarah nodded, her smile widening. "Absolutely. And if you want, we could give you a different name for when you're dressed like this. Something feminine." Robert considered this for a moment, the possibilities unfolding before him. "What about Magdalena? He suggested hesitantly. Magdalena, Sarah repeated, testing the name. I love it. It suits you. And so, Magdalena was born. Every Friday evening, Robert would arrive at Sarah's apartment with a small bag of carefully chosen accessories. Sarah would help him transform, offering makeup tips and styling his blonde hair into soft waves. As the weeks passed, Magdalena's wardrobe expanded beyond the pink silk pajamas. Sarah took her shopping, helping her select flowing skirts, delicate blouses, and comfortable dresses. Each new outfit brought a fresh wave of joy and self-discovery. One Friday evening, about 2 months into their new routine, Sarah presented Magdalena with a gift. I saw this and thought of you, she said, handing over a small wrapped package. Magdalena carefully removed the paper, revealing a beautiful silk scarf in a soft shade of lavender. She gasped, running her fingers over the smooth fabric. It's gorgeous, she breathed, immediately draping it around her neck. The color complemented her pink blouse perfectly. Sarah beamed, clearly pleased with her choice. I thought it would go well with your blonde hair. Speaking of which, come sit.
I want to try something new with your hairstyle tonight.
Magdalena settled into the chair at Sarah's vanity, watching in the mirror as her girlfriend began to work. Sarah's fingers moved deftly, weaving small braids into Magdalena's blonde locks before gathering everything into an elegant updo. There, Sarah said, stepping back to admire her handiwork. What do you think? Magdalena turned her head from side to side, marveling at the intricate style. It's amazing, she said softly. I hardly recognize myself. Sarah squeezed her shoulders gently. You're still you, sweetie. Just a different facet of yourself. As Magdalena stood, smoothing down her pink skirt, a thought occurred to her. Sarah, do you think maybe we could go out somewhere tonight? Just for a little while? Sarah's eyebrows rose in surprise. They had discussed the possibility of venturing out in public, but Magdalena had always been too nervous to try. Are you sure? Sarah asked carefully. Magdalena nodded, a mix of excitement and anxiety fluttering in her stomach. I think I'm ready. Nothing too crowded, maybe just a quiet coffee shop? Of course, Sarah replied, her face lighting up. I know just the place. It's a little hole-in-the-wall spot, very cozy and low-key. As they prepared to leave, Magdalena found herself fussing with her appearance more than usual. She adjusted her lavender scarf, checked her makeup for the 3rd time, and smoothed imaginary wrinkles from her pink skirt. Sarah caught her hand, intertwining their fingers. You look beautiful, she assured her. Are you ready? Taking a deep breath, Magdalena nodded. As ready as I'll ever be. The short walk to the coffee shop was both thrilling and terrifying. Magdalena's heart raced with each passing car, convinced someone would see through her carefully crafted appearance. But as they strolled hand in hand, she began to relax. The cool evening air felt wonderful on her skin, and the soft swish of her skirt with each step was oddly comforting. The coffee shop was just as Sarah had described. Small, warmly lit, and blessedly quiet. Only a handful of patrons occupied the mismatched chairs and sofas scattered throughout the space. Soft jazz played in the background, barely audible over the hum of conversation. Why don't you find us a seat? Sarah suggested. I'll get our drinks. Magdalena nodded, grateful for the chance to compose herself. She chose a small table tucked into a corner, partially hidden by a large potted plant. As she settled into her chair, she couldn't help but marvel at how different it felt to sit in a skirt, the fabric pooling around her legs. Sarah returned a few minutes later, balancing 2 steaming mugs. "1 vanilla latte for you," she said, setting the drink in front of Magdalena. "Thank you," Magdalena replied, wrapping her hands around the warm ceramic. She took a small sip, savoring the sweet, creamy flavor. As they chatted quietly, Magdalena gradually relaxed. No one seemed to be paying them any attention. She even managed a smile and nod at the barista when he came by to clear some nearby tables. "How are you feeling?" Sarah asked softly, reaching across the table to squeeze Magdalena's hand. "Good," Magdalena replied, surprising herself with how true it was. "Really good, actually. This is nice." Sarah beamed at her. "I'm so proud of you, you know that? You've come so far in just a couple of months." Magdalena ducked her head, a blush creeping up her cheeks. "I couldn't have done it without you," she murmured. As they finished their coffees and prepared to leave, Magdalena caught sight of their reflection in the shop's front window. The image struck her. 2 women, hand in hand, looking completely at ease with each other and the world. For a moment, she barely recognized herself, but then she saw the familiar curve of her smile, the way her blonde hair caught the light. It was still her, she realized. Just more authentic, more complete. The walk home was filled with a comfortable silence, both women lost in their own thoughts. As they approached Sarah's apartment building, Magdalena suddenly stopped, tugging gently on Sarah's hand. "What is it?" Sarah asked, concern furrowing her brow. Magdalena took a deep breath, gathering her courage. I wanted to thank you for everything, for accepting me, for helping me explore this part of myself. I don't know what I'd do without you." Sarah's expression softened, her eyes shining with emotion. "Oh, honey, you don't need to thank me. I love you, all of you. Robert, Magdalena, you're the same beautiful soul, and I'm just grateful I get to be part of your journey." Overwhelmed, Magdalena pulled Sarah into a tight embrace. They stood there for a long moment, holding each other under the soft glow of a streetlight. As they finally separated, Sarah reached up to tuck a stray strand of blonde hair behind Magdalena's ear. "Come on," she said softly. "Let's go home." Hand in hand, they climbed the stairs to Sarah's apartment. As Magdalena crossed the threshold, she felt a sense of peace settle over her. This space had become more than just Sarah's home. It was where Magdalena had been born, where she had taken her first tentative steps into a new world of self-discovery. Sarah disappeared into the bedroom, returning a moment later with a cozy-looking pair of pink flannel pajamas. "I thought you might like these for tonight," she said, holding them out. "They're not quite as fancy as your silk ones, but they looked so soft and warm." Magdalena accepted the pajamas with a grateful smile. The material was indeed incredibly soft, and the pink color brought back memories of that first transformative night. "They're perfect," she said softly. As she changed into the pajamas, Magdalena caught sight of herself in the mirror. Her makeup was slightly smudged, her carefully styled hair a bit disheveled from the evening breeze. But her eyes were bright, her cheeks flushed with excitement and contentment. Sarah appeared behind her, wrapping her arms around Magdalena's waist. "You look happy," she observed, resting her chin on Magdalena's shoulder. "I am," Magdalena replied, leaning back into the embrace.
happier than I've ever been, I think.
They stood there for a long moment, swaying slightly as if dancing to music only they could hear. Finally, Sarah pressed a soft kiss to Magdalena's cheek. How about we make some popcorn and watch a movie? We never did get around to our movie night earlier. Magdalena nodded, following Sarah into the living room. As they settled onto the couch, a bowl of popcorn between them, Magdalena felt a surge of gratitude for this safe space, for the woman beside her, and for the journey of self-discovery that had led her to this moment. As the weeks turned into months, Magdalena's confidence grew. Her weekend transformations became a cherished ritual, a time to explore and express a side of herself that had been hidden for so long. Sarah continued to be her rock, offering unwavering support and gentle encouragement. One Friday evening, as Magdalena was putting the finishing touches on her makeup, Sarah entered the bedroom with an envelope in her hand. "I have a surprise for you," she said, a mix of excitement and nervousness in her voice. Magdalena turned from the mirror, curiosity piqued. "What is it?" Sarah held out the envelope. "Open it and see." With trembling fingers, Magdalena unsealed the envelope and pulled out 2 tickets. Her eyes widened as she read the elegant script. "The symphony?" she gasped. Sarah nodded, a grin spreading across her face. "I thought it might be nice to have a special night out, something a bit more glamorous than our usual coffee shop visits." Magdalena's heart raced at the thought. While she had grown more comfortable with brief outings as her feminine self, this would be a significant step. A crowded concert hall, an entire evening in public. Sensing her hesitation, Sarah quickly added, "We don't have to go if you're not ready. I can always give the tickets to a friend." "No," Magdalena interrupted, surprising herself with the firmness in her voice. "No, I want to go. I'm just a little nervous." Sarah's expression softened. She crossed the room and took Magdalena's hands in her own. "We'll take it one step at a time, okay? And if at any point you feel uncomfortable, we can leave. No questions asked." Magdalena nodded, feeling a mix of anxiety and excitement bubbling up inside her. "Okay," she said softly. "Let's do it." The next week passed in a flurry of preparation. Sarah helped Magdalena select the perfect outfit, a flowing, floor-length gown in a deep burgundy that complemented her blonde hair beautifully. They practiced walking in heels, perfected a more elaborate hairstyle, and even rehearsed using a more feminine voice for brief conversations. When the night of the symphony finally arrived, Magdalena found herself standing before the full-length mirror, hardly recognizing the woman who stared back at her. The burgundy gown hugged her figure in all the right places, flowing gracefully to the floor. Her blonde hair was swept up into an elegant chignon, with a few loose tendrils framing her face. A delicate silver necklace adorned her neck, catching the light with every movement. Sarah appeared behind her, resplendent in a sleek black dress. "You look absolutely stunning," she said, meeting Magdalena's eyes in the mirror. Magdalena took a deep breath, smoothing her hands down the front of her gown. "I'm ready," she said, surprised by the confidence in her voice. The drive to the concert hall was a blur of nervous excitement. As Sarah handed their tickets to the usher, Magdalena felt a moment of panic, but then Sarah's hand found hers, giving it a reassuring squeeze, and she felt her anxiety begin to ebb. They made their way to their seats, Magdalena hyper-aware of the swish of her gown, the click of her heels on the polished floor. To her amazement, No one gave her a second glance. She was just another well-dressed woman enjoying an evening at the symphony. As the lights dimmed and the first notes of the orchestra filled the air, Magdalena felt a sense of peace wash over her. She closed her eyes, letting the music envelop her. In that moment, she wasn't worried about passing or being discovered. She was simply herself, in all her complexity, experiencing the beauty of the music. During intermission, Sarah suggested they stretch their legs. Hand in hand, they strolled through the lobby, pausing to admire the ornate architecture and artwork adorning the walls.
"Excuse me,"
a voice said behind them. Magdalena turned, her heart leaping into her throat. An older woman stood there, smiling warmly. "I just had to tell you," she said, addressing Magdalena. "Your dress is absolutely lovely. The color is perfect with your hair." For a moment, Magdalena was too stunned to speak. Then, in a voice that was soft but steady, she replied, "Thank you so much. That's very kind of you to say." The woman nodded, still smiling, and continued on her way. Magdalena turned to Sarah, eyes wide with disbelief and joy. "Did that just happen?" she whispered. Sarah squeezed her hand, beaming. "It did. And she was absolutely right. You look amazing." The rest of the evening passed in a blissful haze. The music was transcendent, but for Magdalena, the real magic was in the simple act of existing in public as her true self. Each moment felt like a small victory, a step further along the path of self-discovery and acceptance. As they drove home, Magdalena found herself filled with a quiet sort of wonder. "I never thought I could do something like this," she said softly, gazing out at the city lights blurring past. "Be out in public, at a fancy event. Just be me." Sarah reached over, taking her hand. "You've always had this strength inside you. I'm just glad I get to be here to see you shine." Back at the apartment, as Magdalena carefully removed her jewelry and began to unpin her hair, she caught sight of herself in the mirror. The woman who looked back at her was radiant, glowing with an inner light that seemed to illuminate the room. For the first time, Magdalena didn't see a disguise or a costume. She saw herself, wholly and completely. The lines between Robert and Magdalena began to blur, merging into a single, authentic identity. "Sarah?" she called softly. Her girlfriend appeared in the doorway. "Yes, love." Magdalena turned, meeting Sarah's eyes. I think I want to be Magdalena more often, maybe all the time." Sarah's face lit up with a mixture of joy and pride. She crossed the room, enveloping Magdalena in a warm embrace. "Whatever you want, whatever you need," she murmured. "I'm here for you, every step of the way." As they held each other, Magdalena felt a sense of coming home, not to a place, but to herself. The journey ahead would undoubtedly have its challenges, but in that moment, surrounded by love and acceptance, she knew she was exactly where she was meant to be. The next morning, as sunlight streamed through the bedroom window, Magdalena awoke with a sense of purpose she'd never felt before. She turned to find Sarah already awake, watching her with a soft smile. "Good morning," Sarah said, reaching out to brush a strand of blonde hair from Magdalena's face. "How are you feeling?" Magdalena took a moment to consider the question. "Scared," she admitted, "but also excited, like I'm finally on the right path." Sarah nodded, understanding in her eyes. It's okay to be scared. This is a big step. But remember, you don't have to do it all at once. We can take it as slow as you need. Magdalena sat up, the pink flannel pajamas soft against her skin. I think I want to start by telling my closest friends. Maybe have a small gathering here, where I feel safe. That sounds like a wonderful idea, Sarah said, sitting up beside her. We can make it a casual dinner party. Low pressure, just people who love and support you. Over the next week, they carefully planned the evening. Magdalena selected a comfortable yet feminine outfit, a flowing skirt in a soft shade of blue paired with a cream-colored blouse. Sarah helped her practice what she wanted to say, offering reassurance and gentle corrections when Magdalena's nerves got the better of her. The night of the dinner party arrived all too quickly. As their friends began to arrive, Magdalena felt her anxiety rising. She retreated to the bedroom for a moment, taking deep breaths to calm her racing heart. A soft knock at the door preceded Sarah's entrance. Everyone's here, she said gently.
Are you ready?
Magdalena nodded, smoothing her skirt one last time. As ready as I'll ever be. Hand in hand, they walked into the living room where their friends were gathered. Conversations halted as all eyes turned to them. Magdalena felt a moment of panic, but Sarah's reassuring presence at her side gave her strength. Thank you all for coming, Magdalena began, her voice trembling slightly. I have something important to share with you. Over the next few minutes, Magdalena poured out her heart. She explained her journey of self-discovery, the support Sarah had provided, and her decision to transition fully. As she spoke, she watched her friends' faces, seeing surprise give way to understanding and acceptance. When she finished, there was a moment of silence. Then, one by one, their friends stood to embrace her, offering words of love and support. Tears flowed freely, tears of relief, of joy, of the profound weight of being seen and accepted for who she truly was. As the evening progressed, Magdalena felt a weight lifting from her shoulders. The conversation flowed naturally, punctuated by laughter and the clink of wine glasses. Her friends adjusted to her new name with ease, their acceptance a balm to her soul. Later, as they cleared away the dishes, Sarah pulled Magdalena into a tight hug. I'm so proud of you, she whispered. You were amazing. Magdalena melted into the embrace, overwhelmed with gratitude. I couldn't have done it without you, she murmured. As their friends departed, each offering final words of encouragement, Magdalena felt a profound sense of peace settle over her. The road ahead would undoubtedly have its challenges, but she knew she had a strong support system to help her navigate them. That night, as she lay in bed beside Sarah, Magdalena allowed herself to dream of the future. A future where she could live authentically, where the woman she saw in the mirror each morning matched the person she knew herself to be. Sarah? She whispered into the darkness. Came the sleepy reply. Thank you for everything, for loving all of me. Sarah's arm tightened around her waist. Always, she murmured. I love you, Magdalena. All of you, exactly as you are. As Magdalena drifted off to sleep, she felt a sense of wholeness she'd never experienced before. The journey ahead would be long and sometimes difficult, but with Sarah by her side and the support of her friends, she knew she could face whatever challenges lay ahead. The pink silk pajamas that had started it all now hung in her closet, a reminder of the first step on this incredible journey. But Magdalena knew that the real transformation had happened within her heart and soul. She was, at last, becoming the person she was always meant to be.
Thanks for watching, my girlies. Be sure to check out Patreon for more.